some fines, and then the only light at the end of the tunnel of that was that they did say that I could still try to appeal the motion to suppress the evidence. However, I don't know that it would cover, like, the hindering prosecution charges, and still I just didn't feel good about taking the plea to begin with.
And what exactly is the hindering prosecution? What are they saying you did?
My boyfriend had a probation violation, and supposedly they had an arrest warrant for him. I never saw it, and I still haven't seen it, but supposedly they had one. And they came to the door. They said, "Where is he?" I said that he was gone. "Where did he go?" I said he went fishing. And but then they had him out in the backyard. But I didn't know they had him out in the backyard because when they drove up the driveway, he kissed me, said goodbye. Earlier that morning, about 2 hours before that, we were having a conversation about what he would do and why didn't he just go, check in with his probation officer, take the classes, and he said that he wanted to wait till he had the money to pay for the fines, but if they came, that he was going to run, he was going to get on a boat because he was a commercial fisherman, he would make the money to pay for the fines, and then he would come back and deal with it. So when he kissed me goodbye and ran out the back door, I figured he was off and running, and it took them 20 minutes to drive up my driveway, go talk to my neighbors through the woods and across the river and stuff, and then make it back to my house. So 20 minutes later, I figured he was long gone. He's in good shape, he knows the woods, and I figured he was gone. And so I didn't know that he decided not to run. He went outside. He didn't have his shoes on, and instead he went and hid behind the wood pile. And so I didn't know that he didn't run. I thought he was gone. So they're saying that that's where the hindering prosecution charges come from. But they knew where he was. His probation officer knew that he was at my house prior to this. It's just I think he wasn't causing problems. He wasn't getting into trouble, and he's kind of small fish at that point. But then when they started getting the phone calls from the anonymous callers that were going, "You know where he is, why don't you go get him? You know where he is, why don't you go get him?" Then they had to come. And then at that point, they had reason to be there because he was there. But once they had them in the backyard, they didn't need to do anything else except for leave, not question me and not see my garden, not threaten to arrest me and take my kid and do all the other things that they did.
Say, Lindy, have you been reading Charles A. Weissman on arrest and false imprisonment?
Well, I finally got my printer to print it out, and it's sitting right next to me, and I've got my highlighters, and that was my next.
You're going to love that book, don't you think, Joe? It sounds like a problem.
Yeah, that's great. That'll give you a lot of stuff to go with.
Great. Yeah, I read the introduction and got excited about it, and one of my daughters is sick with the flu tonight, so I've just been helping her through that, and between that I read a little bit, and I was talking to my other daughters about the risk involved in taking back the plea and what it could mean to our family if things go really bad, and what they think about it, and they're young, and it didn't take them long to realize that if I don't take the plea back, then what does this mean just for our future in general?
It seems.
If we don't stand up for the supreme law of the land and our basic human rights, then what does that mean for everybody's future? And so we were just talking about that before you called, and Because I want them to know what's going on. I've always talked to them about our life together. It's kind of been the three of us.
There is an option in one of the last emails we sent you. I told you, if you take back the plea, right, and you say, I want a jury trial, what they'll do is they'll try to scare you, but when it comes all the way up to the time of the jury trial, usually the day of the jury trial, the prosecutor will offer you a better deal. If you still want to take a deal, I'm just telling you all your options. The prosecutor, they always do it. They try to scare you and they say, this is the deal and you're not getting any other deal, and if you don't take this, you're fucked. That's just to scare you. Then, when you say, well, I want a jury trial, they don't want to take the expense of a jury trial, and also there's a good chance that someone on the jury is going to say not guilty.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So rather than go with that, they will offer you a better deal.
But,
you choose not to fight it all the way.
But Lindy, we don't really know what your deal is. Like Joe knew that he had no probation, no fines, no imprisonment, no peeing in a bottle. But you don't even know what you have.
I know that it's 30-day jail, but with some hopefully alternative sentencing because I don't have criminal history.
What's alternatives?
Yeah, that sounds like
a house arrest or work release, something that could have me be home with my kids, which is good, particularly since there's the issue of my ex-husband trying to get custody of my daughter, and he already tried to get a restraining order. Actually, he did get a restraining order up in Washington State, and then he came down and he got police assistance to come get my 8-year-old out of the bathroom, who was hiding, yelling, I don't want to go with my dad, and hiding behind the water heater, and they handcuffed my boyfriend on the front door because he was going, you have to show me papers before you get to come into my house, and they said they're down at the car, we'll give them to you as soon as you bring her down there, and he said no, and so they handcuffed him outside on the front porch, and then they came inside, these strange men.
That was false arrest right there when they handcuffed him. And they didn't bring him in and arrest him? They unhandcuffed him and let him go?
Well, they went inside the house where, the 8 and the 9-year-old girls are playing, and scared them, of course. Lillian already had a feeling that was going to happen because she was crying with me that morning about it. And, of course, I was like, oh, that's never going to happen. I wouldn't let that happen to you. And because we had found out that they had sent 5 or 6 police cars, sheriff's cars, units out to our property to come get her that night before. And that morning, my landlord called and said, hey, they came out here on last night and scared the shit out of us. And can you please make sure that doesn't happen again? And, of course, they were looking. I thought he was serving me papers for something, maybe to try to get custody. I never dreamed they were trying to come and actually get her and remove her from the house. And so I headed into town first thing in the morning to go to the sheriff's department and say, hey, if you have something to serve me, you just call me up. Don't come to the house and scare my children. And so I was headed to town to tell them, just call me up and I'll come get the papers. I'll meet you or whatever's going on, but don't come to the house again. But by the time I made it back to the house, the next morning, they had already been there, and they had already taken her.
Wow.
And you got her back now?
Yeah, I went to the hearing. They have a hearing 2 weeks later. He had already put her in a new school and stuff, and he only let me talk to her twice. The first time I couldn't even understand what she was saying. It was just like, I love you, I miss you, and she was just crying so hard I couldn't understand her. And the second time, she just seemed like her spirit was broken. And we kept going, we love you, we miss you, and she was just like, yeah, okay. It was heartbreaking. And
wow.
And then at the hearing, the CPS worker that had come to the house when they raided the house, she spoke on my behalf, saying that, you know, I didn't remove the kids that day. It was obvious that they're well taken care of. Her house was orderly, and it was, you know, it looked like, you know, they definitely were well taken care of, that they ate well, and, you know, I mean, they went through everything, even the recycling. They could see that we weren't drinkers, or, you know, they could tell that the house is set up for our children. And, you know, she even said that she wished all the houses that she went to were like mine. And anyways, and she also said that she was in contact with him. And so he knew full well that she didn't have any request or any reason to remove the kids from the home. And so I got her right back that night at the hearing, and the judge was pretty pissed, actually, saying, you know, it was totally, you know, in bad faith that you would have the police go get her, knowing that that would scare her, and that Lindy didn't have any history of, you know, of not showing up for, you know, meetings between me and him, and basically he was ordered to pay back the attorney fees and stuff. But at the same time, because the charges were all pending and hanging over, you know, she basically said she's innocent until proven guilty, and until we know what actually is going to come of this, all these charges may be dropped. But until we know, those things are kind of still just hanging out there. I mean, he was trying to get child support and custody and set that up at that time, and it's kind of just pending at this point.
Yeah, but if you plead guilty, then you open the door for that.
Yeah, it's, you know, and what my attorney said was, you know, if you're not going to prison for 4 to 6 years, you'll have a better chance of fighting your ex than, you know, if you take the plea, you know, at least you'll be able to fight him. And that was his argument on that, which, you know, that there is some truth to that. But, you know, anytime I've ever had to deal with him, it's always, you know, you give him an inch, he takes a mile and wraps it around your neck and hangs you by it, and then laughs at you while you're hanging there. And so, you know, I have nightmares about it when I try to think, okay, this plea's going to be fine, just have faith. Then I have nightmares that, you know, I really regret it, because it's not like he's just going to let those things slide or not shine a big light on, you know, these 2 felonies and child endangerment charges.
Say, Joe, the fact that the plea is so vague, you know, alternative sentencing, maybe she can take it back more easily than in New York. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I don't know the law there, but most states, it's hard to take back the plea. But see, when you go to sentencing, the judge is going to ask you a whole series of questions. He's going to say, were you coerced? You say yes. She
already asked me all those questions.
Yeah, but she's still got to ask them again.
She will have to do that?
Yeah, at sentencing. Yeah. But put in paperwork sent beforehand saying you were coerced. You know, that the fact that your children were, that you were afraid of losing your children, that coerced you into doing it, and the fact that your lawyer ill-advised you and didn't tell you that his first priority, his first loyalty is to the court and not you. Since he didn't tell you that, you want you firing him, and you want to represent yourself, and you want a jury trial, you know? And you watch how they start changing up and start saying, well, how about maybe we drop them down to misdemeanors? See, felonies are real bad, you know? They can change up on you and say, well, we agreed to do this, but what was the term they used?
Alternative sentencing, right?
Yeah. That's a slippery one.
Yeah, I know.
Alternative sentencing. Alternative sentences leaves it up to the judge. And the judge could turn around and say, well, I think since there's so many felonies, felonies here, you're pleading to 4 felonies, which is crazy. I can't, in good faith, not give you time, you know, and he could change up and give you time, you know.
Lindy, we saw.
I want to take back the plea, and I want to speak on my own behalf. Don't say represent yourself, and don't say defend yourself. Speak on your own behalf, right? Mm-hmm. And say, I want a jury trial. I demand a jury trial. And I guarantee that just before it goes to trial, especially if you really bury them in good paperwork, the prosecutor's going to offer you a better deal than what you say. If you want to take a deal, this is all up. You know, these are options. I'm telling you, they're your choice. I would say, unless you guarantee that you drop the felonies down to misdemeanors and no jail time.
But why?
Otherwise, I want a jury trial.
But why even do that? In a way,
well,
Joe.
I'm saying that, Paula. I'm telling her options.
Yeah, I mean, I always said, you know, tell the DA, you know, that I'm not taking a plea. And, you know, and maybe I use some other colorful words to describe my intention behind that, because I feel like my rights have been violated, and I lost a good friend of mine, you know, who didn't have to suffer.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's what you're going to learn with Charles A. Weisman.
And my children have had their life turned upside down, and, you know, when I grew up in a household of law enforcement, and the law enforcement, you know, they were the heroes, and they were the protectors, and my children, they want to pull over the car and hide when they see the sheriff.
Right.
And my 9-year-old wants us to pull over and hide and be still, be still. And it just is wrong that it's gotten so out of hand and the laws have gotten so bad that they have to be scared like that. And I mean, I feel like if anything they should be making amends with us for what they've done and that my friend has died.
But that's what's happening, right, Joe? They're covering their tracks. If you take a plea, you can't sue them.
Right. That is what they're doing.
And I don't know. I never wanted to take the plea until, you know, I never felt good about it. And the only reason I took it is because I was told I didn't have any more time to decide, and even then I was still going, well, I still want to fight it. And then my attorney said to me, well, what's your defense? And my heart just sank because months ago I said, he spent hours telling me what the consequences could be and how much prison time I could spend, and I listened to him for hours tell me, and then I finally said, okay, I don't want to hear any more about what could happen and the consequences, because it'll only make me frazzled by the time I go into trial, and I need to be strong. So I just, you know, you've told me the consequences, thank you very much, but now I don't want to hear them anymore. I just want to work on my defense. And from there on out, I would say this could be part of my defense, and this could be part of my defense, trying to paint a picture for how I could present it to the jury to show my innocence. And everything he shot down. Every single thing he shot down. And I just kept thinking, okay, he's just trying to prepare me for the worst. Because at that same meeting he said, I will fight for you. If you decide to go to trial, I will fight for you. So I just thought all along he was just, you know, having to make it clear to me so that if I did lose, he could sleep at night knowing that he prepared me for that's what could happen, the worst could happen. But then when it came down to the last minute or 2 minutes, and I'm having to make a choice, and I'm going, I still want to fight it, instead of him going, all right, let's fight it, he said, well, what's your defense?
Wow.
And, I mean, that's supposed to be his job.
Right.
But I just thought, what about all these things I've been telling you for months? putting them together with this law and this right, and just our basic human rights, our basic constitutional rights. Can't you draw from all these other cases and word it and empower my thing and put it with all these little things that I've given you that show my innocence and paint a really strong picture? And he was just like, those things won't fly. Those things don't count in this court.
Right.
In that building there, that doesn't mean anything, because that was even that morning before, like when he's going over the paperwork to have me sign it and he's explaining everything, I said, well, what about just our basic human rights to help our fellow man, you know, in his time of need when you have the medicine that he needs? And he just said, in that building right there, those things don't matter. And
see,
I believe
that's not
him,
true.
But they do matter.
Well, one of the things is when you have a lawyer, you're playing by a different set of rules. When you go in as one of we the people, a sovereign human being, you actually have more power. And you can tell the court, I only recognize the Constitution. And this court, this judge swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And I expect this judge, I expect you, Your Honor, to protect my constitutional rights. You know? I told the judge, when they violated my constitutional rights, I told him right in court, you've committed treason. He yelled and screamed, but he didn't contempt me. Mm-hmm. You know? Because he knew that what I was saying was valid. You know, I said that the whole thing that's going on is a criminal operation, and he flipped out. You're saying this court is criminal. I'm saying yes, it is. When you violate my rights, you violated the Constitution, and I believe that your lawyer was setting you up to lose from the very beginning. You know, I never trusted anything to do with Normal. You know, I watched them over the years. I've had problems with Keith Strout myself, and they always try to get people to plead out. They never really want to take on the law to change it, to show that the law is unconstitutional. And for 40 years, you think that they could have came up with a case that could win, but they never have. And I think they sacrifice people, you know. And in your case, you were doing medical and you had a license, and I think that, first of all, Normal and MPP were some of the first pushing medical marijuana. And I think the whole reason that they were pushing that is they wanted all the hippies and people like us to fight, go, yeah, we want medical, yeah, we want medical. And then once they give it to us, now they can take it away. A right given can be taken.
Yeah, and just in the surrounding areas right around me, in less than a week, the feds have come in and pulled up 800 plants of licensed medical marijuana.
We were telling people that. Joe explained it to me, and I did the best I could to tell people medical marijuana is not a good thing. I mean, in the New York law, they were actually suggesting that the patients be supplied with marijuana that was taken away from other people on their raids. So, you know, these SWAT teams aren't even like real police. They're just like a law unto themselves. It's like a cancer on our society. Look at the terror that your children went through. You obviously were the one violated. You obviously the one that's a victim of terror.
But if you choose to fight it, one of the arguments that you can use is saying, you know when Constitution Man talks about, when he's talking about driver's licenses, when he says you can't license a right?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. If you say all through history, people have been using herbs to heal, right? And marijuana's an herb, and it's a right to be able to heal with the herbs. For me to be able to grow the herbs to heal myself and my family and other people. and you can't license that right. And I was tricked into getting a license, and I give back the license. I give back this license because I was tricked, and you can't license a right. And all through history, people have been using herbs for healing, and it's a right.
Well, I mean, it would be one thing if, just, registered growers out of just kind of keeping track of who's doing what. But then, instead of having these laws that protect us, they're just using the laws to screw us over. I mean, instead of the main argument that my attorney kept drilling into my head was that because I gave it to my quadriplegic friend, patient, before he was able to get his card, which, I mean, he was having trouble renewing his card because he was in such a condition that made it hard for him to get to the clinic.
But that goes back to they can't license a right. Even for him to get a card, they're taking away a right from him to be able to take whatever medicine or whatever herb he wants to heal himself.
And instead of, I mean, the laws are supposed to be to protect us, not to just screw us over. Like, instead of taking away my right or any of the laws that would defend me because I gave it to him, I mean, my intentions were good. My intentions were to help my friend who was on his way to healing. I mean, I was doing massage on him and energy work, and he became quadriplegic because of an accident that happened a year prior. And so he still could have healed. I mean, his legs were still moving. He couldn't move them by himself. He didn't have control of the movement. But when I would do energy work, his legs were responsive to the energy work and the massage that I was doing, and he was able to have sensation in his head when I was pressing different points in his feet and his legs and stuff. So, I mean, there was some connection that was still there that, he was really hopeful that he could heal from that, and we would do visualizations, and he was excited. He was going to run again with his grandkids again someday. He would use the medicine. It would keep him hopeful. It would keep him heading in the right direction. And as soon as they came and raided and they took everything, and he was calling, help me, Lindy, it was really hard. I was scared at that point. His family was scared at that point for me to bring him anything, and if I brought him anything, then they would send me away with it, and it was just, it was really hard to watch him go from being so strong and positive to trying to kill himself. And please put me out of my misery, and just watching him suffer. I mean, 3 months, and he died.
So this went on for 3 months?
Yeah.
The harassment from the police stopping all of this from naturally taking its course where a human being can help somebody else because they have what the others need?
Yeah. I mean, we had, my boyfriend did construction, and his family had hired him to go into his house, and he had just started getting it so it was wheelchair friendly, that he could get in and out and around his house freely, and he was going to help me make a room for him where I could set up the plants, and he would be able to wheel his wheelchair in and just be in there with the plants. It would be really therapeutic and kind of help me a little bit, or just be in there with the plants. And the whole vision was to set it up at his house to be this whole healing thing, and he was so excited. And he really believed he would walk again. And so it's really heartbreaking to think that
he may well have. We had
harmless. They've already proven it. We have the science to prove that it's less. It's more harmless than aspirin. It's safer for us, and it's curing the cancers and the Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis, and every day I read at least 3 different things where people were like either terminal or they were on all these medications, and now they aren't just because they have this harmless weed, this herb that, you know, the only side effects is the munchies and a feeling of well-being and hope. And, you know, so it's just sad.
Yeah, I put all that, the same stuff, all that medical stuff in my paperwork when I filed it with the court, you know. When you file your paperwork, collect as much of that as you can and put it in there. But also, if you say that you have a right to heal, it goes back, Jesus healed, it goes back to the Bible, you know. And Jesus told the apostles to heal. All the apostles learned how to heal after Jesus. So healing is a right, and they can't license a right. And you were coerced and tricked into signing the paperwork to take that license. And now that you realize you were coerced and tricked, it makes the contract of the license void.
It's fraudulent, and you have 3 years. Isn't that what Constitution Man said, Joe?
Yeah.
And it's, from what I understand too, like if you're not following their rules, some rules that they've made up that are already unconstitutional, that if you don't follow those rules, they can't punish you.
Right.
And but that's what they're doing, and they're doing it left and right to, you know, more and more people and good people. I mean, I've searched my soul inside and out around this issue, and I mean, I feel like to be most balanced on the earth, we all should be growing it, just for the industrial purposes, beyond the healing purposes. And,
yeah, but I would stay off industrial for now.
Yeah.
The strongest argument is healing. You have a right to heal. You have a right to it.
Yeah.
And all through history, from the dawn of civilization, man has grown and seeked out the herbs that heal. And what you say is the medical and the pharmaceutical have controlled it, and they've gotten licenses, and they've tricked people into getting a license. What good was the license since they arrested you? You know? So it was a scam right from the get-go, you know? And you don't have to, you know, Constitution Man, he lays out each one of those cases. And if you use them just the way he did, Marbury versus Madison, and then the next one down, and then the next one down, and you can apply them all to you.
Yeah.
So what you do is,
see that.
You make a statement, right, like the Constitution applies to me, and then you put Marbury versus Madison, and then you put, I forget all of them offhand, but
Shuttlesworth.
When you write up your paperwork, you take each one of those things, and above the law site, you put your argument. You put this is how this applies to me, and then you put Marbury versus Madison, and then you put, and this is how this one applies to me, and then you put the next one, and then you put this is how this one applies to me, and you put the next one, and where they say you can't convert a right into a privilege, license it.
And charge for it.
And charge a fee for it. And that's where you say, and the fact that they made me get this medical marijuana license, that is void. I was coerced and tricked. And since I was tricked, it was fraud. I fraudulently got the license because I believed that the state was going to leave me alone. And since the state didn't leave me alone, then it was fraudulent on the part of the state.
Yeah, remember he said that the contract has to be enforced in the favor of the non-preparer. Remember that?
Sure.
And that the intention is important. I mean, your intention is so beautiful and pure. If their intention of the law was to bring this important healing substance to the people, then for sure it has to be enforced in your favor, which it's not. So that kind of bad faith means it's like Joe said, it was fraudulent from the get-go. It only set you up.
Yeah, I mean, the more I study the Constitution and all these cases, the more it just becomes really clear, that I did have rights and that I was right in saying, what about our basic constitutional rights, and the fact that I was told that those things don't apply in that building there. I mean...
That was bad advice on your lawyer's part.
Yeah.
You say that in your paperwork. You say that your lawyer told you that they don't apply in that building there, and therefore he wasn't adequately representing you, since the Constitution applies in every court.
Even a court of equity, right? Because they get their power from the Constitution.
Right. Even a court of equity, when they become a court, they have to agree to honor the Constitution.
Right.
Is there a court that doesn't have to honor the Constitution?
No.
Well, they kind of trick you into the contract.
They can trick you into giving up your rights, into giving them jurisdiction. And that's what they did with the license. And that's why you claim it as fraud. You say that the fraud was committed by, they made me believe if I got a license I'd be left alone. And they didn't tell me all the details of the contract. First of all, when you get, like if you went down to get a credit card, right? Mm-hmm. The credit card company has to tell you how much interest they're going to charge you, what they expect. They expect monthly payments. They got to tell you everything about the contract. When you got your license, they didn't tell you everything about the contract. Right? It's really gray. It's really cloudy. It's really,
Yeah, but all the clouds should be enforced in your favor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it says, the last line in the documents that I found says that, even persons that have a qualifying debilitating condition, even if they don't have their card, or even if they haven't even been pursuing getting their card, they're still protected by law to use the medicine.
Wow.
But, I guess that's why, most of the laws, when you get your license, it covers you, your grower, your caregiver, and it keeps going like that, and it kind of in all the different categories. You, the caregiver, the grower, are all connected as one, and you all kind of move protected together. But, so I was under the impression that was the same thing. If he's protected, then shouldn't I be protected to give it to him? Shouldn't I be protected to help him with that? And I think, I have friends, there's people that I've talked to that are on antidepressants whose doctors have told them, you go off of this cold turkey, you could die. And, you may have 1 or 2 days until you're going to really start having bad reactions from not taking your antidepressant. And so if my friends, their medicine, their antidepressant gets dropped in the toilet on Friday, and they're going to have to spend the weekend before they can get to their doctors to replace that. What if I had the same medication, same strength and everything, and said, oh, here, until you can get yours on Monday, cover this so you don't die, or you don't have these bad reactions. Do you go to jail? You go to prison for 6 years for that?
Right.
Where does helping your friend come into play? And that's something that's, pharmaceuticals are really dangerous. We're talking about medical marijuana, this plant that's safer than aspirin. And I don't know, I kind of got off the point because you asked me about the medical marijuana laws and how cloudy they are. And, even the CPS worker said, well, the kids had access to the medical marijuana that was growing in your yard or around your house? And I said, well, actually, we have locked doors where my grow room is in the house, and we have rules if we're ever processing it. We have one room that's set up, and we have rules, and all the kids knew the rules and talked about the rules. But when I called, before I ever got into growing it at my house, I asked the medical marijuana program, I asked them what was the rules around the kids being around it, and they didn't have any. As long as you were licensed, they didn't encourage the kids to be working on the plants, but, and you can't give it to your kid, obviously, but they didn't have rules around it. And when I said that to the CPS worker, she was kind of blown away, but she called and she verified it for herself and was kind of like, wow, we're both under the Department of Human Services, and we're not even on the same page.
Yeah.
So it's really cloudy, and like you said, Paula, it's still, when there's that cloudiness, it's still supposed to favor in my favor. It's still supposed to be interpreted in my favor as the non-preparer.
And also the beneficiary of the contract, which would be the sick person, because if the intent of the law was written to help sick people, you're actually secondary. He's the most important beneficiary, and he died. So that's pretty serious. And I'm sure it could have helped him, because I saw a wheelchair person in the studio, in New York, and he had a couple puffs, and it was unbelievable how the shaking stopped, and he was much smoother, and he was out of pain. He was starting to be in a lot of pain. He was a paraplegic too.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet your friend, if he had access to was it oil or just smoking?
Well, so he would eat it too. It kind of just depended. I mean, he pretty much, whatever I would bring him, he was into. And
no, there's such a good chance that he could have healed, because if you actually look at the U.S. patent of 2004, it talks about cannabinoids as neuroprotectants. So it mentions Alzheimer and dementia. It would be very good for that. So for somebody who's got a neurological problem, I would think it would repair it. If anything.
I believe so too. I mean, just from a healing standpoint and doing energy work on him, I'm very sensitive to the energy of his body, and when I was pushing different points and stretching him and whatnot, his body was responsive to my touch in different ways that let me know that there was definitely still something connecting and going on there. And bigger than that was I would press certain points and he would have a reaction in his brain. It wasn't the same as feeling me squeeze your toe as we know it just normally, but he was having like something going on that let me know that there was still a connection that could have doing the healing, the energy work and the massage and the stretching, and we would smoke it together, and we would pray together, and we would do visualizations, and he had just had a lot of hope, and he was getting better and better all the time, and until I got raided, and it just went downhill fast.
When you were working with him and he was getting better and better, did you find certain strains worked better? Because Rick Simpson always talks about the importance of getting the best material for the oil.
I don't recall, honestly. I just, anything that I grew, when I had my plants, I would play classical music for them. I had this, set of healing resonances that just played a vibration of different healing. And I would pray with them, and anytime I walked into the room with them, the focus was on healing and giving thanks for the consciousness that they provided and for the relief that they provided, and just the raising of consciousness.
Right, that's beautiful. So you're saying You feel that it was, what did they say, nature or nurture? And do you think it was the love or the genetics of the plant?
I would say it's all. You know, it's all of it. I mean, the plant itself is amazing and miraculous, and you can put it through just about anything, and it'll still fight to thrive. And so just the plants in general are amazing. And, you know, but definitely there's different strains that are going to help people in different ways. And I think that it is important to help people connect with the ones that are going to help them the best for what's going on with them. And honestly, I don't remember what I would bring him. It didn't matter at that point. Anything helped him.
Have you seen Run from the Cure, Rick Simpson?
Not yet.
You haven't? Wow, I'm astonished.
To see it. Gotta see it.
All right.
Oh, you have a real treat in front of you.
Oh, good.
Run from the Cure, full version.
Is that the man that's now on the run because they're harassing him?
Yeah, they gave him the Cannabis Cup Award in Amsterdam and seduced him away from his house, and then they raided it while he was gone. He didn't have anything there because he knew, you know, their wily ways, but he had security cameras, which by law you have to mark, all around, and, you know, this dumb SWAT team tore down all the cameras, but they missed one camera. And so they caught all the SWAT team and the people, and then Christian Lorette, the producer of Run from the Cure, posted it on YouTube. And even this little small town in Nova Scotia, it caused such a stir because everybody knew who the SWAT team was. And it's really quite despicable work because one came back later when his own mother or somebody had cancer, and he said, well, you know, could you please give me some? Now my mom's got cancer. And Rick goes, you know, aren't you ashamed of yourself? You know, you came and you raided me, and all those plants that you took, those were people's lives. People's lives were dependent on those plants.
We're friends with Rick. We talk with him all the time, you know.
Mhm. Well, I hope that, you know, the only thing that gets me through the day these days is believing that people are gonna just do the right thing. That people are gonna realize that they don't have to follow the corrupt laws. That they do make a difference, and that they can.
You can't count on them doing that. You've got to force them to do that. You have to assert your rights, because the courts are all corrupt.
Yeah.
And most of the time, when you're before the judge, you can count on he's trying to trick you and he's lying to you. You can count on that. If his lips are moving, he's lying.
Yeah, we learned that from Gene Keating. But the way around it is to use the Dean Clifford, you know, being the director, really beginning to understand what's going on, then you can treat them as what they are, which is administrators of the law. And the law is very profound. It's written on your heart. So you'll find that as Constitution Man sort of gives you the language, he's like teaching you the alphabet. But you're going to know what you want to write with those words and where you want to go with your soul. But it's exactly like Joe says. Assume when you go into these places, these are not nice people. Maybe they were at one time, but it's going to take a while to work back to that so that they can't help but to lie. It's just so part of their nature that you're better off to sort of...
And not just that. The judge, his job is to make money for the county and for the state. And every time they put somebody in jail, they make money. And the judge gets part of when he sentences someone to jail, they collect a lot of money for that person in jail. It's complicated how they do it, but I'm not going to go into that.
I have kind of researched that quite a bit, and I've learned a lot about that. And of course, growing up in a in a prison-centered family, the Department of Corrections and the Parole Division and such. I mean, I grew up in that. And then I've, since all the trouble that I've been in, I've done a lot of research and have come to discover a lot of disturbing information, and I just, I wish that they knew that we don't have to take other people down to make money. There's enough for everybody to be abundant and have all they need, and I mean, we all just want happiness, and we all just...
The more time that a judge gives, the longer sentences he gives, the more money goes into his retirement package. When the judge retires, he gets more money. One of the judges here in the county we live in, when he retired, he bragged in the paper that he gave out 1 million years in sentences. 1 million years in sentences. He bragged about it. And because he gave out 1 million years, he had a big retirement package.
And it's also a message to all the people that invested. For those that understand what he's saying, it for people like you or I, we would just say, oh, he's just, how horrible, 1 million years. How much collective suffering is that? And how much has the society suffered for lack of people being incorporated into our society? All their creativity and talent. And you can bet, they don't like competition, so you're going to find very creative, talented people in prison. And that's why we're lumbering along the way we are. We miss that talent for real advancement. The law and the Constitution, like Constitution Man is teaching, is to uphold civilization and culture so that people aren't living in terror and fear, and they never have a chance to develop, the arts and music and literature and all of that.
And you can remind the court that the purpose of the court is to do no harm, and what they're doing to you is harmful.
Yeah, my boyfriend's daughter, she still comes and stays with us during the week, even though he's not with us at this time, and at night she really misses him, and I go in there, she'd be crying, and I go to comfort her. I miss my dad, and all I can do is cry too, because I miss him too, and it just, this hasn't been anything good for my family. This just hasn't done anything good for us, except for create a lot of stress and scared feelings and everything negative. It's been nothing good.
We know what you've been going through. I've been through it. I didn't tell you, but back in 1970, I think it was 3, they convicted me and my wife, the mother of my 5 kids, right? And they were going to put us in jail and put my kids in homes. Well, I had 3 at the time, right? So I decided, fuck that. I'm not letting that happen. And me and my wife became fugitives. We were fugitives for 18 years. We lived hiding, never knowing when they could come and destroy our family. So believe me, I know what you're going through.
And what you're going through is so crucial to understand why the society doesn't have the healing oil, because the corporate media, including groups like Normal and Marijuana Policy Project, all of those clones, anything that doesn't talk about the prisoners, you can bet is part of hiding this reality. What you're going through, the suffering that you're going through, people don't know about it because they're not seeing it on television, except rare shows like this. And
so sad.
And Normal and MPP go along with it because they say, oh yeah, the prisoners, okay, we'll get around to that. We'll take baby steps, first. Let's get over this first. But no, this is essential and crucial. So
my mom we were just talking about it this morning because she's scared to death that I'll try to take the plea back and try to represent myself, and that I'll just make matters worse, and that it's, right now I've maybe got a fighting chance with my ex, and then maybe I won't have to do any more time than 30 days, and that there's a chance, and you know, that I need to be careful and think about me and the girls, and I just...
But how does that chance look when you consider the criminal track record so far of how they've behaved towards you?
I just said, Mom, you know, to me, it feels like you're saying, because she kept using the word self-perseverance, and I just said, it's like saying, I'm going to teach me and my kids how to be in an abusive relationship and survive it.
Wow.
Not get out of it, not do anything to heal that situation and make it better and empower myself and the girls, but just go along with it and basically bend over for them to self-persevere, to stay safe, to survive in an abusive situation, and it's just not right. I mean, my kids get it. My kids understand what I'm saying, and I know my mom does too, and she's proud of me that I'm learning, but she's scared, and I understand why she's scared. I mean, when the feds come in and they, you know, just rip out 800 plants, and they don't consider the effects that that's going to have on all those patients, all those people, and all their lives that are about to get, like, turned inside out, like my families have, and all the families that have come before us. It's just...
And I'll tell you the truth, I do not trust this judge, because 4 felonies, I can't see how this judge can not give you jail time for 4 felonies.
Well, it's 2 felonies, and I'm not sure what the endangering ones are. I think they may be misdemeanors, but still having those on my record don't help. I mean, I work with deaf and blind kids, and I work with the kids at my children's schools, and I mean, I'm surrounded by kids every day. It hasn't changed much because my community knows me, and the people that I've worked with know me, but still, it does change in the fact that it's still on there. My ex could use it against me, and just in general, that it's just wrong. And like you said, if we don't say, hey, these are our basic human rights, our basic constitutional rights, and uphold them, they're not going to. And
arguing that it's your human rights over your constitutional rights is even stronger. You say, they're my human rights, and they're protected by the Constitution. That's a better way to put it.
I mean, that's the way I've been putting it for months now with my attorney, and being told that doesn't matter.
Yeah, see, he's a normal lawyer. I don't trust none of them.
Joe, tell him about you made the deal with the prosecutor, not me. Tell her that story, what you saw.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You go to court for sentencing, and the guy's expecting that he took a certain plea with certain parameters.
The judge.
Tell her.
The judge can say to you, you made that deal with the prosecutor. I didn't make that deal. And he can change up on you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even my attorney wasn't really clear, was, still telling me that, be prepared that you could be gone the rest of the afternoon, or you could be gone up to 30 days. And like you said, that it could be more, because they do have that right to change it all they want to. And
no, that's the first I heard. Every time I heard you got a deal, you knew what it was, and then you came back a month or 6 weeks later for sentencing. Right, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to sentencing
something's
yet,
really,
because...
something sounds so fishy unless Oregon is so different.
Yeah, I don't trust them.
I don't.
Or certainly don't.
I don't. And, I mean, I would like to still... I asked them to dismiss this case months ago. I asked my public defender, I said, will you please just go to them and say that, request a dismissal of this case, and I will promise that I won't sue anybody in the future. And my public defender just laughed and told me that that was a pipe dream, that'll never happen, and, you know, forget that. And I said, well, it doesn't matter to me if you don't believe me, or if you don't feel that that's right, but I still want you to go, and I still want you to say that to him. And in my next meeting with him, I said, well, did you tell him what I requested? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, what did they say? And he said, oh, that'll never happen. Ray Myers wants to teach you a lesson.
Who's Ray Myers?
For what? That was the detective that led the raid.
Oh.
And I said, for what? And he said, for putting him on the news. Because Channel 5 did an interview with me, and, I mean, it wasn't my idea to put him on the news. It was their idea after they came out. I called the news because I felt like my rights were violated. I felt like I was following these laws, and here they came out and did this, and it hurt me and my family and my patients, and I wanted people to know that there's things that we don't know about these laws. We think that we're following them and that we're protected and our family's protected and our patients are protected, but then, you know, your toe goes over just a little bit, or maybe it doesn't even at all, and they still can come in and do this.
Destroy your life.
Yeah, destroy it.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I called about is, you know, because it was right when the season was starting, and I wanted people to be careful. I wanted my community to know that, you know, I thought that what officer in their right mind could come to my house, see my patient's records, and see the substantial steps that we've been taking to getting his card, and not do anything but walk away and say, have a nice day. And instead of what I got was one of the officers laughing and saying, how's the quadriplegic even smoke weed? And at that moment I realized that I wasn't dealing with anyone that really cared about my patients. You know, I watched them in their investigation when they're cutting my plants down. You know, they asked me what the resonance CDs were, the healing resonance that I spoke of earlier, and I just said, you know, I take this really serious. This is a healing herb. It's sacred, and I pray with them, and I play these healing resonances with them, and it's, you know, this is a really important thing. We take this serious. And then he didn't even hear that. He just goes into, oh, you're just a struggling single mom. You just do this to get by. You just sell a little weed to get by and help your family, right? And like he was saying it like he cared. And I said, no. I said, but I do whatever it takes to help my family survive. And I listed off all the things from teaching sign language at my kids' school, to cleaning their toilets at their school, to fundraisers, to whatever odd job I had to take on to help us survive. And she didn't hear any of that. The next office that walked just
when you're dealing with the police, you're dealing with Cro-Magnons. They really, you can't think of these guys as intelligent human beings. They've been brainwashed, and most of the time they believe, well, I got to take care of my family and mine, and by doing that I have to bust people, and they don't care.
Yeah, well, so the next officer that walks in, he went from acting with me like, oh, you're just a struggling single mom, you just sell weed to get by, huh? To, you know, not even hearing my answer to it, but the next officer walks in and he laughs like I'm not even still present in the room and says, oh, I just got her to admit to selling weed to get by, to support her family.
Yeah, that's one thing you got to learn. Whenever you're with those people, don't say nothing to them. Anything you say, they will use against you, and they will twist it. When you hear them say it in court, you'll say, that's not what I said. And they will stretch. They will take a little thing that you say, one sentence, and stretch it into 3 or 4 paragraphs. You cannot trust any of these people.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't cooperate, that I would be getting arrested, and my child who was there that day would go off with these strangers.
Yes, that's how they work, with threats and intimidation.
And so, I didn't care what it was going to take that day to protect my kid from getting taken by these strangers and her having to go through that. I remember even thinking that, my God, I hope I'm going to, be able to explain this to a jury in a way that they'll understand it, because, I knew that I could see how they were twisting things and how, they weren't believing me. And even when I tried to explain when they were twisting it around right in front of me, I would get, cut off and eyes rolling. And remember, I could arrest you if you don't cooperate, and if I think you're lying, I could arrest you and take your kid today with these strangers. It was very systematic.
Wow.
You should write up an affidavit of truth and tell the whole story, just what they said, that they were threatening to take your kid, put it all in an affidavit of truth. And on the top of the affidavit of truth, write, for the public record, and then write affidavit of truth, and tell the whole story in your affidavit of truth. Because if you turn in the affidavit of truth and you put it on the record, if they don't dispute it within 30 days, and at the bottom, but if you don't dispute this within 30 days, it stands as fact on the record. And if they don't dispute it, it stands as fact on the record.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, write it down from the beginning, from when the time they came in and everything they said to you, and that they threatened you to take your kids, and that's another reason why you say you took the plea, because, the police were threatening to take your kids, and with the charges that you got against you, if you go to jail, you're going to lose your kids. Therefore, you took the plea thinking that you were protecting your kids. But
and that I didn't have, the things in my defense that I kept pointing out. I was told I didn't have a defense. But come to find out, I do have defense. I have a lot of defense. I have a really strong defense.
Yeah,
But don't even think of yourself as a defendant. Right, Joe?
Yeah, I just put my phone on speaker.
She was...
I'm here.
She was saying she had a really good defense. And I said, but don't even think of yourself as a defendant. You're the victim of a crime.
Yeah.
You see, you're the victim. The crime, yes, there is a crime here, but you're the victim.
Paula, can I hang up and call me back, because I got my phone stuck on speaker, and it's just...
Okay.
Call me right back.
Okay. Oh, Lindy, hang on.
Sure.
Lindy? Hello? Lindy? Lindy? Lindy, are you there? Lindy?
Hello?
Oh, good. Lindy? Joe?
Yeah, I'm here.
Lindy, are you there?
I'm here, too.
Okay, good. So let's see, where were we? It was pretty exciting.
Oh, you should tell her, Paula.
Oh, right. I'm taping this, Lindy. Whenever I'm calling, I just don't want to miss anything, because this is such an exciting and heartbreaking, but also so enlightening what's going on, that I don't want to miss anything. But if you don't want me to put anything or use anything, just tell me. We can always not use it, but we can never recreate it.
Yeah, I think it's good to remember what we're going through during this time. Hopefully sometime in the near future we'll be able to look back at it as a place that we were that was negative, and will have created something positive.
Right.
Yeah. And believe me, publicity, just like the cop said, he didn't like that you put him on television. You know why? Because they don't want other people to know what's going on. So it's better to have one. Paula, I had three producers from M&M TV in my court, and when the judge knew that the press was there, he even said, "Well, we have the press here," you know, and it made a difference. It made a big difference. It allowed me to say stuff that he would have shut me up and tried to, but he knew he couldn't because there were witnesses. They want to do everything without witnesses. It wouldn't hurt you to go to the press and talk to the press, and if it's a radio station or a local television station, and just say how you're being screwed around and how the police threaten to take your kids, and is that what the law is supposed to be about threatening and intimidation of a woman with kids? You know, the more personally, I believe the more publicity that you have, the better. That's your choice to decide, but
yeah, I mean, I want people to know, you know, people that don't know what risk is involved, I want them to know, and the people that are already involved in something like this, I want us to take back our humanity. I want us to take back what makes us human beings and be able to live the life that our forefathers intended for us and what we fought for to have these constitutional rights, and I want us to move forward in that light. And I mean, there's enough for everybody to thrive in abundance and happiness and make happy, healthy memories with their families from here on out. The possibilities are endless, and if we can just, you know, think a little bit bigger than our boxes that we're in, and you know, stand up and say, no, hey, wait a minute, this should be taking precedence over these laws down here, which are screwing everybody. I mean, I want people to know. I want people to know that we do have rights. I mean, the only reason I took the plea, like I said, is because I was told that those things didn't matter, that this is the law, and those things don't matter, and I just have been sick to my stomach. How could they not matter? How could things get so bad that helping our fellow human beings doesn't matter?
Right.
We could be threatened to go to prison for years because we helped our fellow human being. We shouldn't be scared out of helping somebody that needs our help.
You know, I agree. I was given the hemp oil to a friend of mine who was a veteran. He had a cancer in his neck, and when I first met him, he couldn't even speak. It was barely a whisper coming out of his voice, right? And I started giving him the Rick Simpson oil. I was making it, and the tumor on his neck shrunk by half, and the vocals, he now had sounds coming back. And then when the police busted me and took the oil and took I had 300 plants. They took the 300 plants and they took the oil that was healing him, and eventually he died. Believe me, I know what you're going through. I've been through it all. The same exact stuff, you know? And it broke my heart. I could have healed this guy. I could have cured this guy using the oil. Not me curing him, but the oil could have cured him. You know?
I mean, it's not like no longer this like woo-woo hippie peace-loving thing where we're just like, oh, smoke weed, peace. You know, it's scientifically proven now. It's every day we hear more and more stories about, you know,
They knew about this oil going times. If you type in the internet the sacred anointing oil of the Hebrews, you'll find out that the ancient Jews made an oil, and what they did was, like we use alcohol or solvents to extract the THC from the plant. But back in them days, what they did was they used olive oil because THC sticks to the fatty molecules. So what they did was they took olive oil and they took marijuana and cinnamon bark and what's the incense? Frankincense. No, myrrh. And they mixed myrrh in and they boiled it all together, right? And then they strained the oil back out of it. And all the prophets of the Bible were anointed with that oil. Christ was called the Anointed One. Jesus was anointed with the sacred anointing oil, which was made with THC at birth. They don't tell you that. And that oil, what was already, Paula, the religion?
Zoroastrians?
The Zoroastrians, right? When the Jews left Egypt, they went into Persia, where the Zoroastrians were. And the Zoroastrians already knew the healing effects of marijuana. It was one of the main things in there. It was their main medicine, and it was it was used in sacred ceremonies. And the Jews got it from them, right? And they knew back then of the oil that it healed. And if you go back even in the 1800s in this country, they had medicines with hemp oil. This oil is, the healing properties of this oil has been known all through history. Yeah. And our government did research. In 1974, they did the Virginia College, what was it again, Paula? The Virginia College?
They did the study on cannabis oil done by the DEA and I think the American Cancer Society
at the DEA and the American Cancer Society. In 1974, they wanted to try to prove that cannabis caused cancer, and all their research showed when they injected it into mice that had cancer that it cured the cancer. And the government hid that research. They buried it up until what was his name? The Spanish guy, the guy from Spain.
Guzman. Professor.
Until Guzman redid the study and let it out. And Guzman got the original information from the 74 study and reproduced it and proved it again. So our government knew in 1974 that the hemp oil cured cancer, and they hid that information from the American people. Think of how many people died from cancer because they hid the cure.
And
it's criminal.
I mean, from all ages and that have had to undergo,
chemotherapy,
tremendous pain.
Right.
And my daughter, when she was 11, her little boyfriend, we were there when he passed away, and we watched him, have to go through, chemotherapy at brain cancer, and we were there when he passed away with his family, and, maybe he wouldn't have had to go through that pain and that suffering. Maybe it could have been cured, and to think of all the families that have lost children and lost family members or had to watch their family members go through painful treatments, and it's sad. I mean...
And the reason they do all those, they're keeping hemp oil away is because it's a cheap cure, and chemotherapy is, they make so much money from chemotherapy, that's why they don't want to legalize the hemp oil, because the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors that do chemotherapy and the hospitals that do chemotherapy would lose billions of dollars. So life is not important. Money is important to those people. Cure is not important. The bottom line, making a dollar, is more important to those people. So don't think for a minute that these people don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, it's just, I just wonder
It's evil.
what it's going to take to change that around.
Well, the founding fathers saw that, and what did you say, Joe? They left something greater than themselves?
Right. They knew even that they were human and that they had flaws. So when they made the Constitution, they tried to make a document that was bigger than themselves. And they did. And it's up to every one of us to stand up. Like I stood up, my son stood up, now you're standing up. And what we need to do is keep getting this information out to more people and educate people like we've educated you with Rick Simpson and the stuff that we've given you. Now you got to pass that on to other people. The more people that know it and the more people that stand up, only the people can bring about the change. Don't think the government is going to protect us and watch out for our interests, because it's not.
Well, I hear you and I see it, and I've been seeing it for a long time, and all the research has just made my head spin, and seeing how far from our humanity that we've gotten, and I just pray that along the way there are those people that will make the right choices, because I know there are good people in all walks of life that could make the right choices. So I hope that they do when we're there saying, hey, these are our rights, and I hope that they go, oh yeah, and want to do the right thing.
Well, the thing is
and I hope that the people will stand up and hold them accountable. You know, when I went to find a constitution, I still have yet to find one. There was none at the courthouse. I mean, the lady in the office.
You can pull it up online.
Oh yeah, I just wanted one. You know, Constitution Man was like, go to your city hall. You know, go to your courthouse. So I went to those places and they don't have them. They kind of look at me cross-eyed, like, whoa. Like it's an odd request.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Ain't it crazy?
Yeah.
And you know, all the research that I've looked up, a lot of the same research that you've looked up, and you've looked it up. Believe me, our government knows even more than what we've looked up. They know what we're saying is the truth. They just won't admit it.
Yeah, I mean, well, when they're holding the patent on you know, the benefits for our brain, and obviously they're, you know, it's proven how safe it is and what it's good for, and you know, they're trying their darndest to keep us from having it and utilizing it to hurt us and basically make us slaves in prison, and I just don't get it.
But on the other hand, aren't we lucky to know all of this, and to have access to such an herb and a healing modality?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. We're not, when Reefer Madness came out, and that's, you know, that did a lot of brainwashing to make people afraid of it and its evil ways, and you know, how bad it could be for you, and you know, we've worked through all that for all these years, and now, you know, everyone, I mean, even the religious women that come to my door, you know, everyone that I know has been touched by it in some way where they can see the ridiculousness of its prohibition and how much it's hurt and affected so many families. And
that's why you want a jury trial. Believe me, if you have a jury trial and they see you defending yourself instead of a lawyer talking and you're sitting over there looking guilty, when you actually talk to the jury, it's going to be very hard for them to get a jury to convict you.
Well, I hope you're right. I mean, honestly, I wish that the judge would just, see that this has been a big violation of our rights and just do the right thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on that. Most of the judges are corrupt.
Yeah. You can't count on that, but if you do what Joe said, you direct them. Just have your laws so tight and so in order, and then bring in your soul. But you got to get the law down. Now, you were saying that your mother is frightened of you defending speaking on your own behalf. But on the other hand, you said she was also proud of you at what you're studying. So you must discuss it with her. So
yeah, I mean, we go back and forth for hours sometimes, because she's afraid. And I've told her, what did the men in our family fight for? They fought for these rights. And what did Grandma hang up her dancing shoes for? All I've heard my whole life is that we're, doing all this political stuff to protect our constitutional rights. And they've never said just, take the easy way out, don't go research other ways or other benefits or, this is what they've taught me. They've taught me to stand up for my rights. And so, I just keep pointing that out, that it's not in my blood to just...
Right, but did she sense that you got this through what you've been learning from Constitution Man, or just your natural development that drew him to you?
I'm not sure, because she hasn't really listened to Constitution Man, nor does she really understand it.
But when you talk so fervently about your rights, is this something you've just always sensed, or something that he put a language to? He did it for me.
Yeah, I think that he definitely put a language to it, because for me and my mom to argue about anything political or our rights, for me, I've always gone with my intuition. So when I enter a political argument, I'm going, my intuition tells me this or that. Everyone just kind of laughs and blows me off, even though majority of the time my intuition is pretty right on about a lot of things, come to find out. But now I'm actually able to kind of speak their language and give them more insight than she even knows. And she, she is right there with me going, it all sounds very good and it all feels right and it should be that way. At the same time, she's like, but you're just small, it compared to the big forces that are out there that would like to squash me, that would like to shut me up.
David kills Goliath.
Yeah.
And, my most political friends, that, are always speaking out, that are always for standing up for our rights, they're like, well, we don't want to sacrifice you, Lindy. We don't want to sacrifice you because they're evil and they're not going to change and it's corrupt and, they're just going to take you out of the picture and nobody's going to care. And that's the fear. The fear is that I'm going to be sitting in prison while my kids are being raised by other people, and who's going to care? That's it.
Well,
what can anybody do about it?
We're going to care. We're going to care. And believe me, if it goes that way, we'll be out here making a big stink about it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you're giving expression to so much sorrow, because your area, I'm sure, is not unique. I told Joe as the summer was coming to a close that I said I was just getting really, really anxious about the crops and what must be going on, because we know how these people work. If they really didn't want marijuana around and they want to pull up plants and you're over your quota, why don't they do it at the beginning of the season? Why do they always wait for the harvest? It's because they're thieves. And these kinds of raids have been
And out in California, it's well known that the police come and raid the crops, and then the police have been selling the crops to the dispensaries. So what they're doing is they're stealing people's crops and putting them in jail, and then they're selling the crops to the dispensaries. It's so evil. It's like, it takes people like us to expose the evil. If we don't expose it, it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying to my kids. I explained the worst case scenario of what could happen, and I explained, the best case scenario. Of course, I'm always a dreamer, and I'm always like, it's going to have a better than imagined outcome. That's my motto, is that let's shoot for the better than imagined, and not even put a limit on to what this could lead to.
Right.
But I am a mom, and I have to be realistic, and I do have to think about my kids first. And even when I talk to them about it, they understand it, and I've told them what could happen, and even my daughter, who's 13, said, but Mom, if we don't, then what could happen to our future?
Yeah. And you got to just keep visualizing that you're going to come out of this positive, and believe me, faith in God works.
Well, I've said from the beginning that, that there's got to be a reason for this. There's got to be something positive to come out of it. Otherwise, what for?
When I was busted, everybody said I was going to jail. Everybody, all the lawyers, and I got busted with 300 plants, and I didn't have a medical marijuana license. I had 300 plants. I was making hash and making hash oil. I had 20 pounds of marijuana, and I had $40,000. And everybody said I was going to jail. And in the end, I got nothing. Not even peeing in a bottle, Mm-hmm. No probation, no jail. But I have a lot of faith in God, and and I did a lot of the work. Have faith in God, but educate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. And I'm right there with you. And I have to trust, and I have to believe that there is a higher power and there is a higher purpose for all this that we're going through. And I hope that no more lives have to be sacrificed for this cause, and that we can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel and get to really reap the benefits of what could happen when we free up the weed.
And one of the questions you asked when in one of your emails is, how do you look up these cases? If you go, once you get the name of the case, like let's say Marbury versus Madison, mm-hmm. and then there's numbers after Marbury versus Madison. I forget what they are offhand, right? If you put that into the computer and do a search, it'll usually come up. And the best places to search are the legal law libraries of the colleges that teach law.
Uh-huh.
Almost all the colleges that teach law have a place online where the students can access their law library. It's all I can't think of any.
The closest place to me is 3 hours away. But I did go to the courthouse yesterday, and they have a law library there that I can go visit now, I realize. So that's about an hour away.
Most of it you can get right on the internet, which gives you more time to study. The hour that you're traveling back and forth is 2 hours that you could be looking stuff up on the internet.
Right.
I can't think of any colleges right offhand, but like Harvard Law School.
Mm-hmm.
If you type in Harvard Law Library and then type in the case sites that you want, like Marbury versus Madison, and type in the numbers, it should come right up. And you don't have to read the whole case, even though Constitution Man says you should. It's better to do it, but you don't have the time. But if you just go to the ruling, that's the most important thing, is what was the final ruling? And if you put the ruling, you cite the case, like Marbury versus Madison, and the numbers, and then there's what the Supreme Court ruled, and you put that underneath it. So what you would put would be your argument and support, and then Marbury versus Madison supports it, and this is the ruling from Marbury versus Madison.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I think where I'm at is, of course, kind of filling in the blanks of, I understood the case laws and what the rulings were and what they represented in terms of relating them to my case. My thing is just all the legalities of the paperwork and the forms and.
Yeah, that's easy. When you if you're putting in a motion, right? Your first page, you put in a notice of motion, right? And what the notice of motion is you say. I'm going to motion the court for this, and you keep it very brief. And then your next page is another title page, and it's the motion, right? And then that's just basically a cover page. And then the next page is where you start laying out your case.
And then I turn it in to the.
You have to make 3 copies. One you give to the judge. First, what you do is, first of all, you always take them down and you get them notarized. And also on all your paperwork, put for the public record on the very top, for the public record on everything. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Then after you've got your paperwork done, you take it to, you can go to any bank where there's a notary public, right? And you sign it in front of a notary public, and he'll put a stamp on it, and then he'll sign it. Then you take your 3 papers, your 3 motions or 3 affidavits, right? Whatever it is you're taking in, you take 3, and you go into the court clerk, right? And you give one to the court clerk, and she'll stamp it. That's for the judge. And you ask her to stamp the other 2. So it's got a time and a date that you turned them in. Then you go to the prosecutor's office, right? And you ask them to stamp they'll stamp theirs, and you ask them to stamp yours. So now your copy will have a stamp on it from the judge that you gave him a copy, and it'll be a stamp on it from the prosecutor's office that they got a copy. And
the judge gets his or hers through the clerk, though, right?
What's that?
You said that the judge, I would give the one for the judge to the court clerk.
To the court clerk, right?
Okay.
And make sure you get all three of them stamped by the court clerk. Okay. And then you get the other 2 and go to the prosecutor's office, and you say, here, I'm turning in this motion for you guys, and would you stamp mine? And because it's like the stamp that shows that they received it. That's important. Make sure you do that with everything you turn in. And on everything you turn in, put on the top of your paperwork for the public record. I didn't do that on all mine because I've just learned that. And that's another thing to make your case strong. So if it goes to appeal, they have to turn that into the appeals court. It's something that I've only learned recently. When you go for appeal, they want the transcripts from the court case, and the court is only obligated to turn over to the higher court what's on the public record. And what's on the public record is the transcripts, unless you put in all your paperwork that's safe for the public record. Now all your paperwork that you turned in goes up to the appeals court. They don't have to send it to the appeals court. So what they're really sending is the court record and their argument, and they're not putting your argument up to the higher court. So the higher court only has one argument to judge on. That's something new that I've just learned that I didn't do in my court cases, but now that I know it, I'll never not do that again.
All right. Well, I get the big stars next to that note.
Okay.
Got it.
Well, any information that we can give you, and any time you're stuck on something, feel free to call and ask. If we know it, we'll tell you. If we don't know it, we'll try to help you look it up or find it.
Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, you guys.
Well, you too.
We love you for taking the stand, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love y'all for calling me and for being there to support me and my family. I realize, through all this that everyone's in this rat race trying to just survive, and people don't take time out for each other, especially for strangers, and it means a lot to me, folks like you that have come forward to help me and my family.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, a lot of people helped me when I was doing my cases, I reached out to people that knew a little more about law to me, and they gave me a little information, and then I got Constitution Man. It's been a long time learning for me. I fought a bunch of cases that I didn't know what I was doing in the early days. But over the years, after they've screwed you a few times, you start learning how they screwed you, not to let it happen again.
Mm-hmm.
So the least I can do is pass that information along to you.
Thank you. And I keep passing it along as well.
That's good.
I've learned so much, even just in the last few weeks since I took that plea, and it just went against everything that was right for every cell of my body. Just felt so wrong.
Well, by talking about it now and putting this out, it's like creating another public record to say this is the truth, this is how I felt, this is what came down.
Yeah, and I never want to go through this again, or my family to have to go through it, nor any other family, especially people that have sick family members and sick children and their loved ones, having to watch them suffer when it's so preventable. And yeah.
Right.
So thank you, and thanks for dreaming with me how we can create something better and higher and more conscious, and live that life of in pursuit of happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
Pass that on to my children and my children's children. I mean, my kids get it. It didn't take much for them to understand where I was going. They were kind of like, okay, Mom, let's get on with it, because it was easy for them to understand.
Wow. Isn't that beautiful?
They were explaining it back to me better than I was explaining it. Even my teenager, she was like, I wish I could talk to the judge. And, she just makes it so simple. It's really so simple. They just make it hard and make you, have to depend on your attorney to spell it out for you. And, I really trusted my attorney, and I do want to believe that he had good intentions, and maybe within the scope that he practices in, maybe that's the best that he could do. I'd like to think that he had good intentions, and that he still will have good intentions. But in the meantime, one thing that I've learned through all of this is that if I don't stand up for myself, who will? And if I don't stand up for these rights, who is?
Right.
And at least in my where I stand and what I can do.
That's the same way I felt when I fought my case. I said, it actually started for me back in the 70s when I watched, when I first decided, I fought most of my cases on freedom of religion, because for me it is a spiritual substance. I've always believed that. But I watched a kid, we had this kid, his name was Bobby, but we all called him Froggy because he had that deep voice like a frog, right? And he was a 16-year-old kid. I had just come back from Vietnam. I was 21 years old, but he used to hang out with us, right? Mm-hmm. And his parents found a half ounce of marijuana in his drawer, right? And they put him in a mental hospital, right? Because they thought, oh, he's taking drugs. And they gave him shock treatment.
Oh, my God.